How does a Jew best connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? That's a fascinating question. It's a question we should at least be thinking about. And it's one that is subject to, I guess, significant argument over time between different groups of Jews. I actually found a discussion of that in a relatively strange place in the discussion of the Pachim Ktanim, those very small jugs that Yaakov Avinu, right, that Yaakov is, in theory, according to the Medrash, going back for where he encounters the angel of Esau. But let's take one step back. Um, right, Yaakov is trying to get his family away from Esau, and it says, "Vayikachem vayavirem et hanachal." Right, he brings them over the river. Vayavor et hashelo, he brings everything over, and then pasuk Chaf Hey, this is in the Lamed Beis, chapter 32. Vayivater Yaakov levado. Yaakov remains alone. Vayavek ishimo ad alot hashachar. Right, and the battles with this person who we find out is the angel of Esau until the morning. And it seems like, right, that he goes over the river and then he comes back, right? Because in Pasuk Chavdalad and 24, it's Vayikachem, he took them over the river, but then he finds himself on the other side of the river alone. And the Medrash says just that. He took them over, but he remembered that he forgot these little jugs, and he goes back, and the Medrash says, why would he do that? Right? Because the tzaddik valued his money over his life, and it's a very strange and difficult Medrash that I'm not interested in today. Right? But that's the Medrash reads this as he does go over, then he comes back, and he comes back for this, and he encounters the angel of Esau. That is certainly one approach, but the Rashbam says that we should read these differently. There's no contradiction in the verses. Means 24 is he helped his family go over, right, through the river. He got them across, he shepherded them, but he was always on the other side. He was making sure that each one got on the paddle boat, on the raft, on whatever it is, or got through. And then he remains on the other side. And there he encounters the angel of Esau. But the Mefarshim noted that point that if that is true, there's an extra word because it says Vayivater Yaakov Livado, right? Yaakov remains alone. Well, if he's the only one left, of course he's alone, right? If he was going back so that he alone went back, that I understand. But if he never crossed the river, then what does it mean he remained alone? If he's the only one, he is, of course, alone. So here's a fascinating discussion between, we'll call them the philosophers, the rationalists, and the Hasidim. So the Nesivos Shalom is a commentary of the Rebbe of Slonim. So he says as follows: we find God amongst people. When we're connected to Bnei Israel, we find God and we're protected. It was only when Yaakov remained alone without the other Jews that he was subject to attack from the angel of Esau. We find Hashem amidst the Jewish people. When you separate yourself and you're alone, you are subject to attack. The Rambam's son, Rabbi Abraham, the son of the Rambam, looks at the same words. He comes to the exact opposite conclusion. Right? He says that when you encounter an angel, it's also an encounter with the divine, right, at some level. And in order to achieve the spirituality, the level that you need to encounter an angel, you have to be alone, unburdened by people and possession, right? You have to start to think and maybe meditate, but really focus. And you can only do that when you're alone, not when you have other responsibilities and people around you, right? Do you find God in solitude or amongst the Jewish people? In a nutshell, might very well be the argument between, right, what we would call the rationalists, the philosophers, and the Hasidim. All right, what works for you? It's up to you to choose. Right, everyone can find Hashem in the place that is suited to them. But I think the most important thing is that we're at least asking the question, right, where is it And how is it that I would like to find Hashem? Shabbat Shalom.